Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. After my military husband, Jason Miller, slapped me hard across the face in front of everyone to defend his comrade's pregnant widow, Zoe Young, I suddenly regained all the memories from my previous life. I remembered everything. I knew that Jason and Zoe were plotting to switch out the child in my womb. Knowing how it would all unfold, I silently went to the hospital and terminated the baby that was already 3 months along. Then continued pretending I was still pregnant. Jason and Zoe had no idea the child was already gone. Just like in my previous life, they kept waiting for me to give birth, planning to frame and ruin me when the time came. 6 months later, they stormed into my delivery room carrying a baby as dark as coal, planning to swap it with mine, and were both completely stunned. It was the autumn of 1977, when I was 3 months pregnant, that Jason came back from a mission with a visibly pregnant woman. He casually explained to me that her name was Zoe Young, the widow of a comrade. Like me, she was over 3 months along. He said he had promised his dying friend to take care of Zoe and the child she was carrying. Knowing she had lost her husband and was alone with no one to rely on, I felt truly sorry for her and didn't hesitate to let her stay with us. Jason told me that Zoe was a college student from the city and had never done manual labor before. So, all the housework naturally fell to me. Even though she was also pregnant, Zoe didn't lift a finger. She just ate, slept, and relaxed. Meanwhile, I had to go to work at my unit and still take care of everything at home. Cooking, cleaning, and looking after her. Zoe didn't just avoid housework. She was also extremely picky about food, clothing, and daily necessities. In that era of severe material shortages, she insisted on eating refined white rice and flour every day and frequently demanded meat and eggs. She also constantly snacked on small treats. Jason gave all his salary and allowances to Zoe to support her demands, but it was still never enough. Unable to keep up with her lavish spending, Jason started targeting me. He wanted me to hand over the money I had saved so carefully to raise our child, and let Zoe use it instead. I was deeply unsettled by this. I never saw myself as a petty person. I had always sympathized with Zoe for losing her husband, and had done everything I could to care for her since she moved in. I believed that if I treated her sincerely, she would show some understanding of our situation. But she didn't. She spent Jason's money without restraint and treated me, a fellow pregnant woman, like her servant. Maybe it was because I was extra sensitive while pregnant, but I couldn't help feeling that Zoe was treating me more like a maid than a hostess. I gently brought it up with Jason in private, hoping he would understand, but he scolded me harshly, saying I was being petty and ridiculous, accusing me of lacking the grace and tolerance a woman should have. Instead of standing by me, his wife, Jason, continued defending Zoe. That made me feel even worse. Maybe I really was overthinking it. But I kept feeling like Jason was treating Zoe differently in a way I couldn't quite explain. That was until one night when I got up in the middle of the night and saw Jason and Zoe holding each other. When they noticed me, they quickly separated. Jason explained that Zoe had gotten emotional thinking about her late husband, and he was just comforting her as a friend. But I clearly remembered when I saw them. There wasn't the slightest trace of grief on Zoe's face. Even though I didn't fully believe Jason's explanation, I chose to trust him until one day, Aunt May, a neighbor from our compound, pulled me aside. "Elena," she said, "you're a good person. I know that. But don't let your kindness end up in the wrong place. Don't be the kind of woman who gets sold and still helps count the money. Watch out or some shameless fox will lure your man away." Her words were vague, but they hit me hard. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that the fox she was referring to was Zoe. After all, Zoe constantly called on Jason for everything and acted more entitled than I ever did as his wife. I grew more and more uneasy, so I began watching them closely. The more I observed, the more things felt wrong. Jason spent several times more with Zoe than he did with me. Whenever Zoe needed anything, he came running. Whatever she wanted, Jason would do his best to get it for her. But with me, he never showed any care on his own. Every time I needed him, he was always with Zoe. Jason made me endure so many grievances just for Zoe and acted as if it were all perfectly justified. There wasn't the slightest trace of guilt in him. I might have been slow to react, but I wasn't stupid. Once I realized that something was seriously wrong, I took the initiative and told Jason that Zoe needed to move out. He refused and we got into a huge argument. He didn't treat me like his wife at all. After the fight, he didn't even come home that night. Instead, he stayed next door with Zoe. Not only that, he even stole the wages I had just collected and used the money to buy her snacks and luxury items like snow cream. When I found out, I was furious. Rage clouded my mind. I exposed everything right in front of all our neighbors. Jason, humiliated and burning with anger, raised his hand and slapped me hard across the face right in front of everyone. Even though I was already over 3 months pregnant, the force of the slap sent me to the ground, blood dripping from the corner of my mouth. As my vision blurred, a wave of memories suddenly flooded my mind. It was a memory from my previous life. The exact same scene had happened before. Jason had brought Zoe home when I was 3 months pregnant, just like now. He gave her everything. His time, his attention, his money, and completely ignored me. When I finally realized something was off and tried to speak up, he slapped me in public, just like now. In my past life, after that slap, I chose to stay silent. I endured everything, watching Jason treat Zoe like she was the center of his world. I became their servant, doing everything for them. That miserable life continued all the way until I gave birth. Zoe and I gave birth on the same day. She had a healthy, adorable baby boy. I gave birth to a child who was pitch black like charcoal. Jason was furious. He accused me of being promiscuous and claimed I had cheated on him with some black man. I tried everything to explain, but nothing worked. He refused to accept me or the child. He contacted his superiors and filed for divorce. After Jason abandoned me, I became the laughingstock of everyone around me. People spat on me, called me names, and I was fired from my job. With no other options, I returned to the countryside holding my dark-skinned child. People mocked and bullied me. No one wanted to take me in. Later on, perhaps out of a shred of sympathy for the years we had spent as husband and wife, Jason offered me a way to survive. His mother had fallen while chopping firewood in the mountains, and was now paralyzed from the waist down. Jason asked me to care for her. With nowhere else to go, I accepted. And so I endured everything, working tirelessly in the countryside, feeding, cleaning, and caring for his mother for 30 full years. While I suffered in hardship, Jason rose steadily through the ranks and became a high-ranking official. He married Zoe and raised her child, living a prosperous life. In the blink of an eye, 30 years passed. After his mother passed away, I was already a shell of a person, worn down by illness and suffering. Just before I died, Jason returned to the countryside with Zoe and their child. That was when they told me the truth. Zoe had always been the one Jason loved. The dark-skinned baby was hers. Jason had switched our babies to protect her from judgment and pinned the blame on me. Once the truth came out, I died full of hatred. Jason, Zoe, and their son went on to live a happy life together, while I was nothing but a discarded pawn in their perfect story. As those memories from my past life flashed before my eyes like a reel of film, I found myself collapsed on the ground, the taste of blood still fresh in my mouth. Just a few feet away, Jason stood staring at me with disgust. Zoe, clutching her belly and pretending to be in pain, called out pitifully that the baby was moving, but her eyes were filled with undisguised malice and satisfaction. Jason left me behind and rushed her to the hospital. The crowd, having had enough drama, quickly dispersed. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and stood up slowly. Since fate had given me another chance at life, then so be it. I would repay every grudge, settle every debt. I had no intention of keeping this child. Let's see how Jason and Zoe planned a scheme against me without this baby as their leverage. That very day, I went to the hospital and had the baby removed. While I was lying on the operating table, Jason was just a few rooms away, fussing over Zoe as she pretended to have stomach cramps. He had no idea I had already terminated the pregnancy. He didn't care how I was doing. His entire heart was with Zoe. Ironically, Jason's utter neglect gave me a few undisturbed days to recover from the procedure. It wasn't until the 5th day after the abortion that Jason finally brought Zoe home again. Zoe, playing the delicate and fragile damsel, leaned into Jason's arms as they entered the house. When he saw me still lying in bed without any response, Jason flew into a rage and stormed into the room. "Elena Morris, what are you still doing in bed?" he barked. "Get up and make a bowl of sweet egg soup for Zoe to replenish her blood." I remained lying there unmoved, staring at him coldly. When I didn't react, Jason repeated himself, this time louder. That's when Zoe, still holding her belly, finally spoke in a soft, gentle voice. "Sister-in-law, are you upset with me?" "I'm sorry. It's all because of my weak body. Jason's just worried about the baby," Zoe said softly, her tone full of concern. "That's why he wanted me to stay in the hospital a few more days. I told him to go back and take care of you, but he wouldn't listen. Please, Elena, don't be upset with him because of me. Getting worked up could hurt your baby." For someone like Zoe, her timing and words were calculated to perfection. Every sentence sounded sweet and pitiful, but each one struck like a knife. In my past life, I would have been furious at her manipulative act, but in this life, I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I calmly held out my hand to Jason and said, "If you want sweet egg soup for her, give me some money. I'll go buy eggs and brown sugar." Jason was stunned for a moment, then immediately grew angry. "Are you doing this on purpose? You know, I spent all my money on Zoe's medical expenses. If you have no money, how dare you order me around? Do you think I'm your maid?" I sneered. "Let me make this clear, Jason. If you want to take care of someone else's wife and child, that's your business. Don't count on me. From now on, if you dare touch even a single cent of mine, don't blame me for what comes next." His expression darkened. "What did you say? Say that again." He looked like he wanted to come over and teach me a lesson. I forced myself upright despite the pain and said slowly, "You keep saying Zoe's husband died, and she needs someone to care for her. But I find it odd. Did all her relatives die with him too? Does she really have no one else and just had to come to you? A random army buddy?" My words made both Jason and Zoe visibly uncomfortable. They had something to hide and couldn't answer me directly. Zoe wiped away a tear and squeezed out a few more. "Sister-in-law, I didn't mean to upset you. If I've been a burden, I'll leave." As soon as she turned around to leave, Jason immediately chased after her. I leaned back against the headboard, cold laughter bubbling in my chest. Guilty, aren't they? Good. This is only the beginning. The real nightmare for them was yet to come. In the few days I had to rest after the surgery, I thought things through clearly. Since Jason and Zoe had been planning to betray me from the very beginning, there was no reason for me to go easy on them. I wouldn't reveal even a hint that the baby was gone. If they intended to ruin me and use my life as a stepping stone for theirs, they had another thing coming. As long as they continued scheming like they did in my last life, I would make them pay dearly for it. I would keep pretending to be pregnant and wait for the day I could expose them for who they truly were. And now that I knew what kind of people they were, there was no way I'd repeat the same mistake, working like a mule for them while they enjoyed life. Jason wasn't going to touch a single penny of my salary or allowance ever again. In fact, I planned to make Zoe return every cent she'd already spent. I searched the entire house for cash and hid it somewhere only I knew. I used ration tickets to buy meat, eggs, and brown sugar, taking care of my body every day. I even exchanged fabric tickets for a few new outfits and shoes for myself. Securing my assets was step 1. Step 2 was finding out what Zoe's real deal was. I had already tested them with my questions earlier, and their reactions made it clear they were hiding something big. My instincts told me Zoe wasn't just a grieving widow. There was something else, and I was determined to uncover it. Jason didn't come back until late that evening. By then, I had already eaten dinner. He entered the house and went straight to the kitchen, expecting food to be waiting, but the stove was cold and nothing was there. His face turned dark as he pushed open the bedroom door. "Elena Morris, what's your problem? Throwing a tantrum now? There's a limit. You know you didn't cook. Are you trying to defy me? I'm warning you. Don't push me too far." "What'll happen if I do?" I said quietly, leaning against the headboard and staring at him. My calm demeanor made Jason even angrier. "You push me far enough and I'll divorce you just like last time. Just like in my previous life when I refused to be their servant." Jason used divorce to threaten me. Back then, I had been terrified of being abandoned, of becoming a divorced woman mocked by others. But not anymore. The Elena of today had already died once. I wasn't afraid of anything. I gave a cold laugh. Fine, let's get a divorce. Jason was dumbfounded. Elena, do you even know what you're saying? Do you even understand what will happen if you divorce me? Jason snapped, clearly not believing I'd actually go through with it. After all, I had always obeyed him, accepted everything he dished out, and never dared to fight back. In this era, divorce was practically a social death sentence. Just the gossip alone could drown a person. Of course, I knew what I was saying. Divorce. Fine by me, but I had one condition. Hearing that I had a demand, Jason immediately relaxed. He thought I was just playing hard to get, using this as a bargaining chip. Whatever you're asking for, I'm not agreeing to it, he said smugly. Elena, you have no choice. Either behave and keep looking after Zoe and her child like before, or I'll file for divorce tomorrow. I looked at him and laughed coldly. Jason, I'm never taking care of Zoe again. So, don't even think about it. Listen carefully. I only have one condition for this divorce. You return every cent you took from me. Jason hadn't expected that. The demand for money made him lose it. I don't have it. I already spent it. That's not my problem, I said flatly. You took my money, so you're going to give it back. Otherwise, I'll go straight to the leadership and report it. At the mention of reporting him, Jason visibly froze. What are you going to tell them? I'll ask them why a pregnant widow like Zoe isn't receiving any state assistance, I said, staring him down. You keep saying her husband died in the line of duty, right? If she's a fallen soldier's widow, then she should be receiving subsidies. So why is she depending on you, a random army buddy? Either leadership is failing to act, or something else is going on. I'll go ask the higher-ups myself and help comrade Zoe get the support she deserves. As soon as I finished, a flicker of panic crossed Jason's face. He was so used to me swallowing every insult, backing down at every threat that it never occurred to him I'd actually take action. He tried to change tactics, lowering his voice and reaching for my hand. Elena, what are you doing? You're going to be a mother. Why stir up trouble like this? I admit I lost my temper earlier. You made me angry. I'm sorry. Let's not fight. Let's just live peacefully. I pulled my hand away and handed him a piece of paper with a number written on it. This is exactly how much you took from me. I'll give you 3 days. I want it all back. If I don't get it by then, I'll go to the leadership and report it. I mean it. He could tell from my tone I wasn't bluffing. Seeing that I wasn't budging, he had no choice but to storm off again, slamming the door behind him. I knew he went straight to Zoe to figure out what to do. Watching him flee like that made me frown. I had only been testing him, throwing out a bluff to scare him, and he actually backed down. That could only mean one thing. There was something off about Zoe's so-called widow status. I needed to get to the bottom of it. Those two scumbags clearly had something to hide. They thought without me, the naive, self-sacrificing fool from my past life, they could still live comfortably. Let's see how long they can keep that up. Zoe wanted to recreate her happy little life from before. Not on my watch. I was going to make them live every day in fear, never able to eat or sleep in peace, always looking over their shoulders. Jason didn't come back until 3 days later. But during those 3 days, I knew exactly what he was up to. He was clearly panicking. He found another place for Zoe to stay and moved her out. He was running around borrowing money, even asking Aunt May, who happened to be one of the few neighbors still friendly with me. She pulled me aside to warn me about him, and I thanked her sincerely. Then I went to the hospital to ask the doctor some questions about Zoe's condition. There was one thing I still couldn't wrap my head around. Zoe was carrying a black child. How could she be so bold as to keep the pregnancy and use it to frame me? Wasn't she afraid it would all blow up in her face? By the time I got back home from the hospital, Jason finally returned. Over the past few days, he had been borrowing money from everywhere, and had just barely scraped together the amount I demanded. Feeling guilty, he even managed a rare smile as he handed me the cash. Here's the money. I've also found a new place for Zoe to stay. From now on, I'll try to stay out of her business. Let's just focus on living a good life. I took the money, carefully counted every bill, then tucked it away. Jason, I'm pregnant and my health isn't great, so I've quit my job to focus on resting and taking care of the baby. From now on, all your wages and allowances must go through me. His face changed. Why did you quit your job all of a sudden? I already told you my health isn't good. The doctor said I need to rest and avoid any stress to prevent a miscarriage. Jason clearly didn't want me to quit my job, nor did he want to hand over his paycheck. But he had no choice now. He was afraid I'd blow the whole Zoe situation wide open to the authorities. More than that, he was scared something might actually happen to the baby. After all, he and Zoe still needed that child to complete their scheme. From that point on, I stayed home, eating well, reading, studying, and preparing for the upcoming National College entrance exam. My days were peaceful and leisurely. Meanwhile, Jason and Zoe's days were anything but. Jason no longer dared to openly hand over his wages and allowances to Zoe. Instead, he started sneaking small portions to her, and told me it was for his mother. Without the freedom to throw money around like before, Zoe began to feel the pressure. She could no longer feast on delicacies every few days, nor afford new clothes or fancy creams. Her once extravagant lifestyle came crashing down. She started wearing clothes patched at the elbows and knees. Without proper nutrition, she lost her glow. Gone was the rosy-cheeked, plump woman of my past life. In her place was a pale, freckled version, dull and worn out. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I ate well, slept well, and glowed with health. As I studied, I also made sure to spare a little time to get under Zoe's skin. Every few days, I'd go to her and ask about her government widow subsidies, how much she received each month, whether the payments had been issued yet. My questions clearly rattled her. Eventually, she started avoiding me altogether. Time passed, and Zoe's belly grew bigger by the day. To keep up the illusion, I stuffed my belly to make it look like I was pregnant too. Jason never once showed any real concern for me or the baby. His mind was always with Zoe. And because he didn't care enough to pay attention, my fake pregnancy went unnoticed all the way up to the supposed delivery date. Soon the time came, just like in my past life, for Zoe to go into labor. Jason brought his mother over in advance to care for her, and then rushed home to check on me. Seeing that I was perfectly fine and showing no signs of labor, he quickly turned around and left again. But not long after, he returned carrying a big thermos of pork rib soup. He handed it to me and insisted that I drink it, watching me closely the entire time. I knew exactly what he was thinking. That soup was probably laced with something, but since there was no baby in my belly, I had nothing to fear. So under his watchful eye, I finished every drop of the soup and gnawed the bones clean. Satisfied, Jason stayed behind to monitor me. I could see right through him, and sneered internally. I held on to my fake belly and walked calmly back to the bedroom. Lying down, I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, listening to him pace anxiously outside the room like a trapped animal. He was on edge, clearly waiting for me to go into labor. After about half an hour of lying in bed, I finally let out a staged groan and clutched my stomach. It hurts. I cried out dramatically. Jason rushed in. I'll take you to the hospital. Let's go now. Still pretending to be in pain, I held my belly as Jason helped me into the car. He had already made arrangements at the hospital. Somehow, Zoe and I ended up in rooms right next to each other. She had been in labor for a while now, and her screams were loud enough to wake the dead. From the next room, she wailed like a pig being slaughtered. Once I was settled in my hospital bed, I started groaning along with her every now and then, just to keep up the act. After all, childbirth wasn't something to be taken lightly, especially when lies were involved. Zoe screamed like a pig being slaughtered all the way until midnight. Her water finally broke, and she was rushed into the delivery room. Jason stayed in her room the entire time. Seeing her in so much pain, he was overwhelmed with pity. He told his mother to keep an eye on me, and then followed the doctors into the delivery room with Zoe. The moment Jason left, I immediately sat up and waved at his mother. Mom, I just remembered something really important. I think I dropped some money while changing clothes earlier. Maybe at home, maybe on the road. Can you go check for me? It's a couple $100. Hearing that, Jason's mother got flustered and rushed off. As her hurried footsteps faded down the hallway, I sat up and tore the wad of cotton off my belly. It was showtime. Zoe did give birth to a real baby boy this time. After hours of grueling labor, she finally delivered. The moment the baby was out, Jason moved fast. He wrapped the child up tightly and rushed out of the delivery room only to run straight into his mother in the hallway. Seeing her disheveled, Jason frowned. "Mom, didn't I tell you not to leave Elena's side? What are you doing here looking like that?" "I just went to the restroom and slipped," she mumbled. Jason scolded her. "How could you be so careless? Has she given birth?" "I think maybe," she replied, unsure. "I saw a bundled-up infant and rushed to find you." In reality, she had no idea if I had delivered or not. She had rushed home supposedly to look for the lost money, but what she really intended to do was claim she never found it and keep it for herself. After today, she figured I'd be disgraced anyway. She planned to pocket the money while she still could. But to her surprise, no matter how hard she searched, there was no money to be found. Frustrated and cursing under her breath, she started heading back, only to be knocked over by someone and sent flying into a roadside ditch. By the time she managed to crawl out, the person who bumped into her had disappeared without a trace. Furious, she stumbled back to the hospital, muttering foul words the whole way. When she pushed open the door to my hospital room, she saw me lying calmly on the bed next to a tightly wrapped infant. Realizing I had safely given birth, she sighed in relief and immediately went to find Jason so they could swap the babies while it was still dark before others could get involved. Mother and son rushed back to my room. As soon as he entered, Jason saw the bundle lying beside me. He tiptoed over, carrying Zoe's baby, and quickly switched it with the one next to me. But just as he completed the switch, I opened my eyes. "Jason," I said coldly, "what do you think you're doing?" He was so startled by my voice that he almost dropped the baby. Trying to play it off, he forced a smile. "Zoe just had a baby boy. I brought him over to see you." "Is that so?" I sat up slowly, my eyes fixed on the bundle in his arms. "Funny, because that's the same baby I just gave birth to." Jason froze, his eyes darted nervously, realizing he had been caught. He had only intended to make the switch quietly and slip out, never expecting me to wake up at that exact moment. Now that I was wide awake, he figured he might as well go all in. Without another word, he yanked the blanket off the bundle lying beside me and shouted, "Elena, what the hell is this? How could you give birth to a baby like this?" His loud yell brought his mother rushing over. She stormed in, tore open the wrapping on the infant next to me, and let out a horrified scream. "Oh my God, this baby's black. This can't be Jason's child. Elena, you shameless woman. You cheated on him, didn't you?" Screaming and shaking with rage, she pinched the baby's arm hard. The dark-skinned newborn wailed in pain, his cries piercing the air. As his cries echoed in the room, Jason raised his voice and joined the chaos. "Elena Morris, you actually cheated on me behind my back. You shameless whore." Jason's mother screamed, "What did my son ever do to deserve this? How could you cheat on him behind his back? And if you were going to cheat, couldn't you at least pick a Chinese man? Why a black man? You've disgraced yourself and our entire family." She threw herself to the ground, rolling around and sobbing hysterically. Her voice was sharp and loud, echoing far into the night. It wasn't long before a crowd gathered outside, drawn by the noise and eager for drama. The hospital room was soon packed with people, all craning their necks to get a look at the crying dark-skinned baby lying beside me. Whispers of shock and speculation spread like wildfire. How did she end up with a black baby? Yeah, how is that possible? She must have been sleeping around with some foreigner. No doubt about it. She cheated on her husband with a black man. That's how she got pregnant. So shameless. What kind of woman does something like that? People who had come just to watch the commotion now joined in, pointing at the baby and judging me right alongside Jason's mother. In the middle of the chaos, Zoe finally made her entrance. She looked around and saw the entire room rallying behind Jason's family. A satisfied smirk flickered across her face. She wobbled over to Jason's mother, still crying and flailing on the floor. "Auntie, please calm down. Don't hurt yourself," she said, gently helping her up. Then, with false innocence and venom in her voice, she added, "Sister-in-law, I don't want to blame you, but how could you be so careless with your reputation? Jason's been so good to you, and you turn around and betray him like this. How could you do something so disgraceful with a black man? Jason, holding Zoe's baby in one arm, pointed a finger at me. I treated you well, Alina. How could you be so shameless? That's right, Zoe chimed in again. Everyone here saw how good Jason was to you. You didn't want to work, so he let you quit your job to rest during your pregnancy. He gave you all his wages, let you spend freely. Whatever you wanted, he made sure you had. But you still did something this disgusting. I couldn't help but laugh as Zoe twisted the truth with a straight face. Oh really? Jason treated me that well. Funny, because if I remember correctly, he spent 29 out of 30 days each month at your place. He found you a place to live. He took you to every prenatal checkup. He bought all your groceries and household supplies. He even stayed with you for the delivery. So, are you sure he treated me better than he treated you? As soon as I said that, the crowd's gaze shifted. People started to whisper and look at Jason and Zoe with suspicion. It wasn't like Jason had kept his relationship with Zoe a secret. Everyone already thought they were a couple. Now, hearing the full story, their faces began to change. What kind of husband ignores his pregnant wife and takes care of another woman instead? Someone asked. Exactly, another woman added. Just yesterday, I saw this man helping that woman walk up and down the stairs outside. He held her hand the whole time like she was his wife. I saw them too. They came together all the time for prenatal visits. I always thought they were married. So he's been messing around with another woman the entire time his wife was pregnant. No wonder she wants a divorce. Zoe's expression changed immediately, realizing the crowd's opinion was turning against her. She raised her voice and shouted, "She's twisting everything. Jason only helped me because I'm a widow with no one else to rely on. There's nothing going on between us. It's not something a filthy woman like you could possibly understand." She turned to me with a sneer. "Instead of slandering me and Jason, maybe you should think about explaining how you gave birth to a black child." She pointed at the baby beside me. "All this time, you've been making trouble because Jason helped me. We couldn't figure out why you were so worked up, but now it all makes sense. You were guilty. You cheated, and now you're trying to drag us down with you." Zoe was clever. She immediately redirected everyone's attention back to the baby. Just moments ago, some people had started to sympathize with me. But now, looking at the dark-skinned child lying beside me, the judgment in their eyes returned. No matter what, she shouldn't have had a baby with a black man. Exactly. That's just going too far. Zoe pounced on the opportunity. Elena Morris is the classic example of a thief crying thief. Her mind is filthy, so she assumes everyone else is the same. She stood there proud and victorious, convinced she had already won. I raised my voice. "That black baby is not mine. He has nothing to do with me. He's lying. He's the one who gave birth to that child. I saw it myself the moment I came in." My mom and I were both shocked. Seeing me speak up, Jason immediately jumped in to twist the knife. "Elena Morris, I never thought you'd be this despicable. You've been using your pregnancy as an excuse to bully my mom, quit your job, and even stop me from helping comrades' families in need. I tolerated all of it for the sake of the child. But now I find out you've been sneaking around behind my back, doing something so disgraceful. I'm telling you now, I won't let this go. I'm filing a report. I'll let the organization deal with you." As Jason and Zoe took turns accusing me, the disgust in the crowd's eyes only grew. I no longer felt the need to explain myself. I simply looked at Jason and Zoe, both spitting with rage, and gave them a meaningful smile. "Jason, Zoe, I hope you can still laugh in a minute. I hope you can laugh just as freely." The smirk on my face clearly rattled Zoe. That wasn't the reaction she expected. I should have been panicking, trying to explain, begging for mercy. But instead I was calm, even smiling. Why wasn't I defending myself? Why wasn't I afraid? And then there were the babies. The dark-skinned child beside me was wailing at the top of his lungs while the baby Jason was holding wasn't making a sound. Zoe's expression shifted. Something was wrong. She walked quickly over to Jason and reached for the baby in his arms to check. Just then, a commanding voice came from the hallway. We're from the Military Discipline Inspection Committee. Step aside, please. The crowd quickly parted, making room for several uniformed officers with stern expressions as they entered the room. They looked at me, then at Jason holding the baby, and spoke with authority. Who made the report? I opened my mouth to speak, but Jason beat me to it. I did. I'm reporting my wife, Elena Morris, for misconduct, violating military marriage laws, and having an illegitimate child with a foreign national. That baby is the evidence. He pointed at the black baby next to my bed. That's the child she just gave birth to. His skin color says it all. The lead officer looked at the baby, then at Jason and the woman clinging tightly to his side. He turned to me. Do you have anything to say? Yes, sir. I said clearly. That baby is not mine. Jason brought him in to frame me. If I'm not mistaken, the real mother is the woman standing next to him, Zoe Young. You liar, Zoe shrieked. That baby is yours. The officer furrowed his brow and listened to both sides. Then he said firmly, this is outrageous. Absolutely unacceptable. Take them both in now. As soon as he gave the order, the other officers stepped forward and restrained Jason and Zoe. They were stunned. You've got the wrong people, Jason yelled. It's Elena. She's the one who cheated. She had an affair with a foreigner and got pregnant. She's the one violating military discipline, not us. Zoe screamed as she was grabbed. You're making a mistake. This is all her fault. She's the one who slept around and gave birth to that child. I'm the victim here. Jason's mother, finally realizing what was happening, panicked. You can't arrest my son. He's the most promising officer in the unit. He's about to be promoted. That baby has nothing to do with him. Don't you dare grab the wrong people. Watching the chaos unfold, I calmly lifted the blanket and stepped down from the bed. Then I said, word by word, loud and clear, Sir, I was the one who filed the report. I'm reporting Jason Miller for abusing his position and violating military discipline. I'm reporting Zoe Young and Jason for engaging in an improper relationship, attempting to frame me, and trying to swap my child for Zoe's illegitimate baby conceived with a foreign man. As I spoke clearly and confidently, laying bare everything they had done behind my back, both Jason and Zoe turned pale. How do you know about all this? This isn't true. She's lying. Sir, you can't believe anything she says. They never imagined I'd know their entire scheme. And now caught off guard, they scrambled to defend themselves. As they scrambled to convince the officers of their innocence, I stared coldly at the two of them, these shameless monsters, and delivered the final blow. Jason, I said clearly, did you really think I didn't know about your plan with Zoe? Let me tell you something. I've known about your filthy scheme for a long time. I knew you were planning to swap out my baby. I knew you were going to do everything in your power to ruin me, to make my life worse than death. I've been waiting for this day for over 6 months. Sweat beaded on Jason's forehead, but he still clung to the last bit of hope. You're lying. You're the one who started all this, he shouted. I have witnesses. I have doctors who can testify that you gave birth to that black baby. Even now, he was still hoping the people he had bribed would back up his lies. He shouted about bringing in the doctors, but I was done playing his game. No need to trouble the doctors, Jason. I'll just ask you one thing. You keep claiming that I gave birth to the black baby, and that you and Zoe are innocent. Fine. Then where is the baby Zoe gave birth to? In my arms, of course, he answered confidently. Is that so? I said, narrowing my eyes. Then why don't you let everyone see the baby you're holding? Jason froze, his unease growing. Why was the baby in his arms so quiet? Why hadn't it cried once? Something wasn't right. He looked down. The baby didn't feel soft like it had earlier. The black baby he had just taken from Zoe had been warm and pliable. But now this one felt hard, stiff like a brick. The realization hit him and his heart sank. Before he could react, I stepped forward and ripped the bundle from his arms. In one motion, I tossed it to the floor. Thud. Everyone turned to look, and then came a collective gasp. There lying on the floor was not a baby but a brick. A plain heavy brick. Scrawled across it in thick black ink were the words, Jason Miller and Zoe Young. May you both die miserable deaths. The room fell silent. Jason and Zoe stood frozen, completely stunned. A brick? How? Where's the baby? What happened to the baby? Jason blurted out in disbelief. I looked him in the eye and said, calm and cool. The baby's been gone for a long time. 6 months to be exact. What? That's impossible, he shouted. You've had a belly this whole time. There's no way. Why not? I said, stepping closer, my voice icy. When you hit your pregnant wife for the sake of Zoe, did you ever feel even the slightest bit of guilt? You were so sure I'd stay quiet. So sure I'd obediently give birth to that child. You thought I would keep my head down, play the good little wife, while you and Zoe schemed against me. I took another step forward. Tell me, Jason, what law says I have to let you and your mistress use me as a pawn to raise her bastard child? Jason staggered back, pale as a corpse. I continued, unrelenting. The day you slapped me, I went to the hospital and had the baby removed. I have the medical records. The doctors will back me up, so your little plan to slander me with that black baby? Completely invalid. My baby was gone 6 months ago. Jason's face turned ghost white. Zoe, hiding behind him, stared at me with pure hatred. I could understand how she felt. Everything they had carefully plotted, every step they had taken, had all fallen apart in one moment. Anyone would be furious. I turned toward Zoe and spoke, each word cutting like a knife. Aren't you supposed to be a war widow? Didn't your husband die serving the country? Then tell me, Zoe, what was his name? What did he do? When exactly did he sacrifice his life for this country? Can you say it right here in front of these officers? Zoe dropped her head instantly like a defeated chicken. Not a single word came out. You see, over the past few months, I hadn't been idle. I'd been investigating her behind the scenes. And heaven rewards those who endure. I had finally uncovered her secret. Zoe wasn't a war widow at all. Zoe was Jason's first love. They grew up together and shared a deep bond. Unfortunately, Jason came from a poor family and couldn't afford the dowry Zoe's parents demanded. In the end, they forced her to marry a carpenter. After Zoe got married, Jason joined the army. He started as a low-ranking soldier and gradually rose through the ranks to become an officer. It was through the organization that he met me. Not long after that, we got married. But not long into our marriage, something happened on Zoe's end. Her husband passed away unexpectedly, and she lost her support. She intended to return to her family home, but her parents were ruthless. They didn't want her back. Instead, they planned to sell her to a black man as his wife. Zoe tried to resist, but in the end, she was assaulted and nearly killed by the man. She couldn't bear the thought of living like that, so she escaped. While on the run, she crossed paths with Jason during one of his missions. After years of separation, their reunion was overwhelming, and they had endless things to say. Jason had never truly let go of his feelings for Zoe. He gave her everything she asked for. When she found out he had become an officer, she was filled with regret. She saw him as someone she could rely on now, and took the initiative to get close to him again. What starts once becomes easier the second time. Before long, Zoe told Jason she was pregnant. Jason still had feelings for her. He couldn't bear to turn her away. So he made up a story and brought her back, pretending it was to care for a comrade's widow. Zoe had once been a victim, but because of her impure intentions, she became the villain. Together, she and Jason began plotting how to get rid of me. Zoe wasn't even sure the child she was carrying belonged to Jason. She confessed to him about her past encounter with a black man. But Jason loved her so deeply that he agreed to cover for her no matter what. That's when they came up with the plan to switch the babies. In my past life, their scheme worked. They ruined me and left me with nothing. But in this life, I made my move early. I secretly went to Zoe's OBGYN. The doctor didn't know that Zoe, Jason, and I were now enemies. Thinking I cared about Zoe, the doctor told me everything. That's how I found out Zoe had a uterine condition and shouldn't have carried the baby to term. So now I finally understood why she insisted on giving birth even though she knew the child might not be Jason's. She was taking a gamble. She couldn't afford to risk damaging her own body. And she wasn't even sure the baby was black. But with Jason doing her bidding and willing to cover everything, even scheming against me, she had plenty of confidence. Now that everything had been exposed so thoroughly, neither Jason nor Zoe had any defense left. The officers from the Military Discipline Committee took them away. And just like that, it was over. The crowd dispersed. Jason's mother, once so fierce and arrogant toward me, now sat alone on the floor, crying pitifully. This cruel and shameless woman who had once yelled at and insulted me like I was dirt. Now that the truth was out, she was finally afraid. People are selfish creatures. She had conspired with Jason and Zoe to ruin me. But now she turned to me for help. Elena, it was all Zoe's fault. That filthy girl was the one who set this all up. Please don't blame Jason because of her. He's your husband. You're a married couple. You have to help him. You have to get him out of this. She thought I was a fool. She thought I was still the same woman from my past life. The one who gave everything to serve her family like a slave. But she was wrong. I wouldn't lift a finger for her. Not only would I not help her, I would watch with joy as her entire family crumbled. In my past life, after Jason and Zoe destroyed me, I had nowhere to go. I was forced to serve this woman, paralyzed and bedridden for the rest of her life. This old woman right in front of me, pretending to be pitiful now, had a heart blacker than coal. I took care of her every need, but she never once showed gratitude. She abused me, cursed me, and treated me like dirt. I had lived my entire previous life, carrying her on my back like a burden. Now just imagining her lying in bed, paralyzed and helpless for the rest of her days, unable to get up, I felt nothing but satisfaction. This life let them fully experience their happy little downfall together. The investigation into Jason's case moved quickly. Because of his misconduct and the overwhelming evidence of his deception, Jason was dishonorably discharged from the military and sent home. Zoe, after spending a few months in detention, was eventually released and followed Jason back to his hometown. At last, they could be together happily ever after in the name of love. But unlike in our previous life, this time things were very different. In our last life, he had been a promising young officer with a clean record. She hadn't given birth to a black child, and they appeared upright and honorable to the world. This time, they were nothing but rats and flies crawling out of the gutter, despised wherever they went. The love they once had didn't last. Within days, they were constantly fighting. Jason didn't raise the black child, but he no longer had the ability to father a child of his own. During a previous mission, he had sustained an injury that left him infertile. Not having a child of his own made Jason irritable and resentful. He treated Zoe with increasing coldness. Zoe endured it at first, biting her tongue, but tolerance didn't get her anywhere. 3 months after they got married, Jason's mother had an accident while chopping wood in the mountains. She fell and was left paralyzed from the waist down, unable to ever walk again. Jason's mother became disabled and needed full-time care. In our past life, Jason couldn't bear to let Zoe do a single bit of hard work and dumped everything onto me, the old servant. The moment she became paralyzed, the first person Jason thought to use was me. But this time, there was no one left for him to exploit. With no one else around, and Jason unwilling to deal with the filth and stench of his bedridden mother, the responsibility naturally fell to Zoe. But no child wants to serve a sick parent forever. And Zoe was never someone known for hard work or filial piety. After just a few days of caring for Jason's mother, she threw in the towel. Jason wasn't about to let her walk away so easily. But now all his affection for her had long since dried up. Whenever they fought, it often escalated to shouting and violence. Zoe was furious and bitter, but she didn't dare fight back. Instead, she directed all that anger toward Jason's paralyzed mother. Zoe believed everything she was suffering came from that old woman. If Jason's mother died, she'd be free. That thought consumed her, and soon she began to act on it. She didn't dare be obvious. Slowly and deliberately, she started adding rat poison into the old woman's food in small doses. After about 2 weeks of ingestion, Jason's mother died. It was not a peaceful death. The most visible effect of the poison was blood oozing from all 7 orifices. It was horrific and impossible to mistake for natural causes. Jason called in someone to examine the body. The autopsy was clear. Zoe was arrested again, this time for murder. The charge: intentional homicide. The penalty: death. While Zoe waited in prison for execution, Jason wasn't faring much better. Now legally married to Zoe, he was left raising her child, the biracial child he had never wanted. But he couldn't get rid of the kid. Too many eyes were watching him. He wanted the child gone but wasn't willing to go to jail or risk his life. So day after day, year after year, he was trapped in that miserable reality. The next time I saw Jason was 20 years later. By then, I had become a highly respected senior engineer. Jason, on the other hand, was working as a security guard at one of the factories under my company. He was watching the front gate when he saw me step out of a black sedan, dressed professionally, surrounded by assistants who respectfully escorted me into the building. His jaw dropped. He couldn't close his mouth. That day, as I was leaving the factory, Jason desperately ran out and blocked the car. He said he had something to say to me. I stepped out of the car, arms folded, and looked at him. He looked like an old man, though he was only in his 40s. His hair was completely white, his back hunched. Looking at him now reminded me of how I once looked in my past life, drained and withered because of everything he put me through. I used to look like an aging woman long before my time. But time had changed. I looked at him and I laughed. Jason wrung his hands and said, "I'm sorry, Elena. I wronged you." Then with a loud thud, he dropped to his knees in front of me. "Elena, I was wrong. So wrong. For the past 20 years, I've had the same dream over and over again." "I keep having this dream," Jason murmured about things that didn't even happen in real life. I cut him off. "Oh, let me guess. Do you dream that you became a powerful man? That you married Zoe and lived a glorious, successful life? While I, the woman you shamelessly betrayed, spent my days in the countryside, serving your paralyzed mother like a beast of burden until the day I died." Jason froze, stunned. How do you know that?" "Because," I said coldly, "I lived that life once already. In my past life. I was the one you used and discarded. Now that I've been given a second chance, do you think I'd ever let myself give birth to your child? Serve your family again like a slave? There's no justice in that, is there?" Jason's lips trembled. He wanted to say something, but no words came out. At first, he'd come here hoping I'd help him. He remembered me as kind, soft-hearted, even forgiving, whether in his dreams or in the early days when things hadn't yet turned ugly between us. He thought, maybe, just maybe, if he begged me, I might feel sorry for him. Maybe I'd help him get a better position, lift him out of the pit he'd fallen into. Maybe he wouldn't have to be a gatekeeper anymore. Maybe his pay would improve, but he was dreaming. I turned away and stepped back into the car. As the vehicle started, I said flatly to the factory manager beside me, "That security guard, Jason Miller. I used to know him. He's a person of extremely poor character. Letting someone like that guard the gates. Aren't you worried he'll cause trouble?" The factory leader nodded seriously. "You're right. I've never felt good about him. I will terminate his employment immediately to avoid any bad publicity." Jason lost his job without me needing to say another word. He'd better pray we never cross paths again, because I'm not the kind of person who forgets, and I never show mercy to people who once hurt me. No, I won't kill Jason. That would make me a criminal. But I will make sure his life is anything but easy. I'll make sure he regrets everything he did to me. Jason better learn to walk the long way around if he sees me, because if he doesn't, I won't go easy on him. This life, Jason Miller will live like a rat in the gutter, just like I did in my past life. He'll suffer everything I went through. Only then will justice be served. Only then will my rebirth be complete. Only then will it be a fitting punishment for a despicable man like him.